Hi everyone, today we're going to see how we can perform a one-sample chi-square test, also called a goodness of fit chi-square test. Basically what we're going to do is we will have an observed distribution of a nominal variable, in that case it's just dichotomous, nominal variable, handedness in our case, and we want to compare the observed frequencies of the different modalities with expected frequencies that correspond to a theory, right? And so here we are going to compare the proportion of right and left-handedness with a theoretical proportion of 10% left-handed and 90% right-handed, right? So in other terms, we want to know if the people in that sample are significantly more or less right-handed or differently handed, that's a thing, right? Differently handed than this population where we have 10% left-handed and 90% right-handed. So let's see how we can do that. First, one thing that we want to do here is check how the variable is set. Here, the variable is, if we have a look here, the variable is of the numeric type. So in other terms, here we have numeric values, right, of 2s and 1s, right? And what we can see here is that 1 is left and 2 is right, and that's going to be useful in the rest of the analysis to know that beforehand. It is also possible that we have string variables. In that case, we just use the letters, right? So right, the characters, right? But here, actually, what's in the data set is numbers, right? 1s and 2s, and that's also something that we can see here. If we have a look at the labels, right, we see that 1 is left and 2 is right. Okay, let's analyze. Let's click on non-parametric tests and the one sample test. Let's click on one sample. Okay, let me reset that. So what you are going to see first is this, because it has a bunch of automatic options, this dialog box. But we want to make sure that we get what we want, right? So if we click on fields first, we need to select here in the test fields the variable that we want to study. Here, there's just one variable, so it has automatically selected the right one, handedness. If not, we would select the ones we want to study. Next thing, we click on settings, and we're going to ask here for, so we're going to customize, and we're going to ask for the observed probability, compare observed probabilities to hypothesize. That's what we want to do through a chi-square test. Now, by default, SPSS is going to consider that we want to compare the distribution of handedness with theoretical probabilities that are equal across modalities. So in other terms, that we have an equal proportion of right and left-handed. Another way of saying that is to say that it will compare our distribution with a theoretical probability of 50% right-handed and 50% left-handed, which is not what we want, because we want to compare the observed probabilities to probabilities of 0.1, right, 10%, to 90%, right? So let's see how we can do that. Let's click on options. You need to click on options, and you see the default is all categories have equal probabilities, and that's not what we want. What we want is to here compare our distribution with these theoretical relative frequencies that are for ones. So remember, 1 is left, right? So our relative frequency is 0.10, 0.1, right? Same thing. And for right-handed, so remember in our data set that's labeled, I mean that's not labeled, but that corresponds to a numeric value of 2, right? And that, of course, corresponds to the rest. So that's going to be 90%. That makes sense? So here, of course, SPSS will not let you proceed further if the sum of these is not 1, obviously, right? So the total probability is supposed to be 1, which is the case here. Let's click on OK now, right? And we're going to run this null hypothesis significance test, that is a one sample chi-square test, and that's going to tell us if our observed probabilities are significantly different from these theoretical probabilities. So let's click on OK, and let's see if our sample is significantly different from that. So click on Run, and so you're going to see that SPSS has sort of show you has worked in ways that would help you get the bottom line easily. So here basically you get this main result that it's significant that you should reject the null hypothesis, which is helpful, but we don't get here all the stats. To get them, we need to double click. Right, and so we have a little bit more here. What we have is we have graphs that show, let me show you this, we have graphs that show you the hypothesized frequency. So the hypothesized frequency here in that sample of 10,000 people, that would be 1,000 people being left-handed and 9,000 being right-handed, logically, right? That corresponds to 10%, 90%. But what we have instead is this. We have 1,942 left-handed and the rest is right-handed. So that's 8,058 right-handed. So in other terms, we have here a little more left-handed that we should have, and logically a little less right-handed that we should have if the individuals were taken from the hypothetical population, right, from that theory. So here it results in this. It results using this chi-square test. So here we have the value of the test statistic, which is the chi-square value, right, the observed chi-square. Here we have the degrees of freedom, and here we have the p-value associated with that chi-square test. And that basically tells us that here we have significantly more left-handed than we theoretically expected, right? Using our theory that that we have only 10% left-handed. Another way of saying that is that, of course, we have significantly less right-handed. That's another way of saying that.